Hello, friends. It's your brother Dennis. This is the story behind Thicker Than Water Ministries, Survivors of the Church, the Facebook page I have created. You should consider this a part 2 to my other YouTube video entitled How I Interact with the World as a Christian Minister. There's 3 important points there. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing. My 3 important points there is, first, I look through the lens of love first. And that's unpacked there and how I approach people. Love first. Figure everything else out later. The second part of that is I respect every person's right to their individuality in Christ. Look, we are diverse and different, and it doesn't make sense to me that Christianity should be, and although there is, what I say is, while there is only one way, there are many ways within that way. And then lastly, progress, not perfection, is what I teach. You're not expected to be perfect. Thank God. There's another one, Christ, who is made perfect for us. So I would encourage you to go back to take a look at that video and consider that a part 1 to this video, the story behind why I'm doing this Facebook page and why I've created this ministry. I would also point you to the website, www.ttwmtruth.com. There's plenty of content on there. There's a blog. It tells a little bit of the story of the ministry and recent things that have happened. And a crap ton of video links there. It's a decent sized rabbit hole if you're so inclined. And you can follow this video to the YouTube channel as well if you have interest, or you can just stop here. You're a free human being. I want to start, so where does this start? Where does Survivors of the Church start? And the ministry that I feel like God has handed me, Thicker Than Water Ministries, begins probably with an early fascination with John the Baptist, the character John the Baptist, who many people recognize as a prophet, but directly his influence on Christianity and his story as it relates to the Christian religion. And 3 points that I draw out of that story. You can go look for the story yourself. It's in all 4 of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. A version of it, different details in each of those versions. It is very clear first that John's purpose was he came to point the way to Christ. There's one coming after me whose sandals I am not fit to untie. So he came to point people to Jesus. John the Baptist ministered in the wilderness outside of the city and feasted on locusts and honey, which is where I think any parallel that I sense or feel to John the Baptist stops. I'm not a locust, and well, maybe a honey guy, but not a locust guy. And the final point is that it's described as he was wearing camel hair, which was in contrast to the silky, smooth robes of nobility, that rough, coarse kind of contrast about him. And I remember reading early on, among other characters of the Bible, but had just sensing within myself, hey, John's a madman like me. Parallels that I do see between me and John the Baptist. First, I'm pointing the way to Jesus, and it has not always been so. Christianity is the culmination of an interesting spiritual journey with me that encompasses, I've read the Quran, Buddhism, and I've read the Bhagavad Gita, and asked questions, and was demonically possessed, and read into Wicca and nature worship. And Christianity is just where I've landed and where I've found the answers to my questions. And if you sit down with me long enough, there isn't very many questions that I can't at least come up with a decent answer for. I'm not going to try to convince you, but I can answer some questions. I'm not bad. Pushed outside the church, my ministry is in the wilderness. There's my identity crisis with the Christian culture is well documented. Anybody who knows Brother Dennis will tell you it's true. And there's several YouTube clips associated to this Facebook page, the one you've landed on, Survivors of the Church. You can follow any of those clips to the YouTube page. I've done several points to that and a couple other things as well. And it's weird to me, my experience with church has just been, I never felt quite right, didn't really fit in the Christian subculture. It was always weird to me, and coming out of and being an alcoholic, and many people who know my journey, my recovery journey, will tell you, and what I always say is that my spirituality was a vehicle for my recovery, where many people, hey, if AA works, whatever helps, whatever works for you, work it. It's cool. But my spiritual journey was this vehicle for my recovery. And I've always just been other than in the church. And the same people who, would shrink away from me or maybe are weirded out by me, by my approach or the way that I communicate, those same people, as uncomfortable as they might have been with me in their midst and as part of their tribe, would always come to me like, oh, bless God, my nephew or my grandson or my neighbor, they've tried. I've been working on them, and I just can't get them to come to church. And will you talk to them? And I always do. And I have built a pretty good friendship with people over the years. People like that. People like me, mad men and mad women like me, who just don't feel like they fit in church, but need the love of Jesus. And so it's not camel hair that I'm wearing, but I am a contrast. I have and always been other than. So why did I create this space? Well, it's for other people, for marginalized people mainly, who church abuse is real. And there are a lot of people, I specifically point a finger to my beloved friends and family in the LGBTQ community who have horrible stories of exclusion. And to which I say, what I find in the scriptures, in the love of Christ, is inclusive. It's for everyone. There's a drop of blood for every single human being. And it never made sense to me why anybody would be excluded. How are they going to hear the message if they ain't welcome in the house? And I have my own things that I struggle with. I've made my recovery from drugs and alcohol and pornography very, very clear and open about those things and the flaws that I bring to the table. But I am loved and saved and forgiven of those things. And it's better documented in how I interact with the world as a Christian minister unpacks those things. But it bears repeating in that I am on a loving journey trying to find Jesus and trying to point other people to Jesus. And I don't exclude anybody from that. I will put my arm around you and I will walk together with you where we're going. But I find that validation is a very useful thing as well. And sometimes I need somebody to hear what I'm saying and be like, yeah, man, that was messed up. And you were right for feeling the way that you felt. But better documented in the YouTube clip series, but I pastored a church in a little town in Ohio called Plumwood, and it was 7 years we were there, and it was the last 3 years of that were a terrible, terrible time for me and my family, and we were definitely abused by the position we had there. An interesting end, and how that relates to what's going on now with this space that I've created is, towards the end of my time there, when there were people it was the strangest thing that inside the core of the church, there was only about a handful of people that loved us and appreciated us there, but largely they did not. And there's a reason why people that were out in the neighborhood who loved me and loved my ministry, but wouldn't kind of enter the church. And there was reasons for that. Again, documented. Go look those other clips. The story's out there. I'm not telling it again. That's the reason why I made those clips. I need to heal and move on. That is probably the primary point I'm getting at. I'm taking a long way around, but healing is the point. Listen, if you need to puke it up so you can clean it up, then this is the space for that. So they came to me when the church decided they were going to vote us out, and we're like, hey, if they don't want you, we do. And this wonderful family in the neighborhood, a couple of which I'm at least still, time and space moves people away from you, but I'm still Facebook friends with many of these people, opened their garage to me, and we had garage church. And I'll tell you that coming out of Wednesday nights where only one or two people and having 5 or 6 people show up on lawn chairs in the garage to hear the gospel was a pivotal experience for me. And if these people aren't comfortable going in the church and around churchy people, how are they going to figure out what they need for Christianity? So what was born out of that was these 2 books that I wrote. The first one being First Church of Mars, a practical guide to Christianity for the interplanetary traveler, which is just a clever kind of device I used for if you can't fix church here, maybe we can fix it there. And in that book therein is all the solutions I have come up with for the problems that are plaguing the church in general and choking it out and making it ineffective. That's more of a cerebral kind of thing and more for the theologically minded person. It is accompanied by my first novel, Razor Mist, Does God Love Everyone, Even a Professional Killer? The point, those books meant to intertwine with each other. And the story of Misty in the book Razor Mist, what if the kind of changes that I suggest in the church and how the church would look if those changes existed, then what would that look like in the story of a person, specifically a professional killer? How does that work? How does it look? How does it operate? And how does it live and breathe? So those books are meant to kind of coexist with each other. I managed to get them published. First Church of Mars exists as an audio book. Both those books are available through Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I actually just renewed with Page Publishing to make sure that written copies are available of printed copies are available. First Church of Mars, the contract. I'm actually recording this in June of 2024. In September of this same year, I will also renew so that you can get printed copies of Razor Mist as well. And that's my offering to the ministry that God has given me, which is outside the gates. I know my place now, and it's always been with people who aren't comfortable in church. And some people have been done very incredibly wrong by the church, and I'm here to embrace those people. So that's kind of the point. Survivors of the church, Thicker Than Water Ministry, survivors of the church, record your story. Put it on video. You will find an increasing number of people when you post your story on this Facebook page that will embrace you, that will say, wow, yeah, you're right. You shouldn't have been done that way. And my intent, not making, is to create a body of believers. Not maybe one that's collecting in a physical place, but certainly a place where that inclusion can be found. Where you can feel welcome, you can feel embraced, and we can walk together towards Jesus, which is the ultimate point. I'm not going to talk you to death. I'm going to sit here and repeat things. I try to record these in one setting, and now Mac's out there going nuts. If nobody said it to you today, I love you. And I hope that this clarifies some things for people, what my intent was for this Facebook page I was created, and that people will begin to flock to this space. It's for you, it's for me. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.